Hello, hello. The first slide. Starting with this slide.
Somebody's going to take the front row.
Hi, welcome everybody. We are at COP30 at the World Green Economy Organization Pavilion. We would like to thank for the World Green Economy Organization for the possibility to have this side event here. The title of the side event is Sufficiency as the third pillar of transition to climate neutrality. We have two speakers, Gunnar Boye-Olesen from Inforce, who is speaking about the European perspective, and Shai Yashwant from India, Climate Action Network South Asia. And he will speak about the South and Indian perspectives. Now I would like to give the word to Gunnar Boye-Olesen from the International Network for Sustainable Energy.
Yes, thank you very much, Judith. I will go up here and make my presentation from here because I had made a little. First, I would like to say that we are from the International Network for Sustainable Energy, which has 150 NGOs worldwide. It was formed back in '92 in Rio. We've been working with renewable energy and energy efficiency for many years. And then some years ago, like 10, 15 years, we started to also consider that it's not enough. And together with us, many more people have been saying that since we are not reducing emissions fast enough to keep the 1.5 degree or even 2 degrees in high-consuming countries, we are seeing problematic climate solutions with their own problems like nuclear power, CCS, overuse of biomass and others. And many studies are simply concluding that a certain level of consumption or increased consumption is not increasing well-being or happiness. So we actually, in some countries, don't really need more consumption. And many analysts, climate analysts, are concluding that we simply also need to reduce consumption. But that's nice to have this statement, but to actually go into practice, what do we do? And one option is to employ policies that lead to less of the consumption with high climate impacts and replacing it with low impact consumption. And we will call that sufficient.
Excuse me, is it possible to speak a little bit more to the microphone?
We will call that the sufficiency policies. That's what we. But when we are speaking about sufficiency policies, we also have to speak about sufficiency measures. Measures are what people are actually doing, and the policies are the ones which are helping them to do so. As you can see from our little stickers here, we have had this triangle of renewables, efficiency and sufficiency as one of our campaigns for a while, and we have made a number of projects on sufficiency which this presentation is based on, and we have one ongoing presently with the Nordic, with support from the Nordic Council of Ministers. Coming to sufficiency, this is the measures, and what is it actually we're speaking about? And there's, most of it is not some rocket science. I mean, we divided it in five types of consumption nowadays. And dwellings is the first one, with the long building life, with less heating and cooling and less light. But also the size matters. Smaller buildings consume less, both in construction but also in use. And that can also be with having simply smaller buildings. It can also be sharing. And then we have the sharing as the last element in the sufficiency with sharing common rooms and facilities. Then we can go on with transport, where of course when we see at the service, if we have shorter travel to work, to shop, etc., if we with the size, smaller vehicles, using a bicycle instead of a car, but also just a smaller car instead of these very big cars, and for sharing public transport are probably the most obvious example of that. But the same goes for products with longer lifetime and sizes adapted to needs, and also sharing economy. You don't need to own everything yourself, it's just you can use it when you need it. Food, we included that also because with the service, we call it that if you use food with less, simply with less environmental effect, like plant-based food and organic food, then you are also contributing to a sustainable lifestyle, and reduction of food waste is the other part of it. Then we added the fifth one recently with the holidays, where since more and more emissions in rich countries had to do with holidays, then we can avoid flights and also cruise ships. We can have shorter distances for our travel, and simply with sharing is also possible in various ways. One way is exchanging homes during holidays. But that's what the measures. Then it comes to the policies, and here I just took some of them. If we take, for instance, long life type of buildings and less heating and cooling and light, as I mentioned before, the policies to do that is support renovation. To finance is more preferential for keeping things and keeping the buildings, and not to build new ones. And for the temperatures, closing happens, stopping heating and cooling when not in use are simple examples. I hope you can hear me still. Yes, good. Because so it goes through the whole thing, and if you, for instance, go to the last one, holidays, avoid flights and avoid cruise ships, it's a question of developing good alternatives, because people still go on holiday. But it's also about taxes and also marketing of the good alternatives. So if it's more expensive to fly and use a cruise ship, and if there are markets and good alternatives available, then there will be more people using that. We can also have ban of proposals, or activities, but we propose or support not that too much. So how are we doing? We're doing it in Europe. I mean, if we had a long study about all the sufficiency measures that are implemented in the 5 European countries, I'm mentioning some examples here, and some of the examples. And we welcome the last participants. I hope you can hear me from here, because there was some noise in the background, and I hope that, what's that? There's a small break in the connection. In the meantime, I could just introduce to the new participants, okay, that we are just presenting now experiences from Europe, and then we will continue with reflections from India and from the South once I'm over through my presentation. And we just came through the definition of sufficiency policies and sufficiency measures, which are the things people are actually doing, and coming up to the fact what actually the countries are doing in Europe. Because in Europe, we actually, if you look at all the things we identify as sufficiency policies and measures, we are doing quite a few of the things, and in a short while we'll have it on the screen again, and that will help me to give more insights into it. So we will, yes, so we just jump quickly to where we were about Europe, where we say for Denmark, for instance, we already have something about smart electricity meters and tariffs that are over the day, so you can make an optimal use of electricity compared to where there's a low CO2 and also the lowest price, and they are usually together. We have online advice on energy-saving behavior. Some municipalities are planning tiny houses to have smaller houses, but there's a budget for bicycle infrastructure, but it's quite small. We have an aviation tax, which could be also bigger and could be more focused on taxing on the luxury flights or the more luxury flights. We have packaging tax. We have free reuse at cycling centers and other things. And if you use to France, it's probably the country in Denmark who have embraced sufficiency most. They have their own sufficiency plan, which in French is sobriété plan. They have a number of things about smart heat control systems. They have a 19 indoor temperature target. They're boosting carpooling, but also a lot of public transport. They're actually limiting or short haul flights, and they're supporting bicycle, including cargo bikes. They have a repair label so that you can see on many products you buy in France how easy it is to repair. They are planning environmental labels on food and more vegetarian meats in canteens. And that's the other countries have also. Every country has something, but we can do much more. Here I mentioned all the things to the left, what they actually are doing, and this is probably the countries that's doing the most, but they can still do a lot more. They can promote co-housing, sharing facilities, promoting renting out of rooms and moving rooms, more tiny houses, which is difficult to make in France. They can regulate holidays homes so people are not having double homes or minimizing it. They can progressive tax on energy and water use so it's cheaper to use less. They could promote work from home. They could make more urban planning and stronger transport actions outside the cities, because they have a very interesting way of reducing transport in Paris, for instance, but not in the whole country. And support sharing centers, increase support for repair workshops. They could have a lot of interesting food proposals, but they actually need to implement them. So that's also part of policy. Sometimes it's fine to have the policy, but it needs implementation. So what we hope, first of all, I say that we think that sufficiency is an element of just transition, which is so much up on this COP, because it's actually some policies for buildings can actually make them cheaper. For instance, tiny house policies allowing people with lower income to have a good home. Societies that require less travel and support bicycling to get between the functions, institutions, etc., is more equal, because still, even rich countries, not everybody has a car. And that makes a big difference for people. And people reusing and repair products makes more second-hand products available and reduce cost, but of course they can be higher initial cost if you require better products and more repairable products. Plant-based food should be the cheapest because plants are easier to grow than animals, but it's not always, but that should be the option. And holidays option with less travel can be cheaper, not always, but at least it has a less resource consumption, so it has a possibility. And then the question is, will sufficiency give economic growth or degrowth? And because the main critique of sufficiency is also by traditional politicians and traditional economists is that it harms economic growth, but it's a questionable statement, and it's actually mainly told by sectors that will reduce activity with sufficiency policies as airlines. Because when you replace high pollution consumption with low pollution consumption, some sectors will grow and some will not grow. If, for instance, have concrete production we need less of, versus building renovation we will need more of, airlines we will need less on, trains we will need more on, cruise ships we will need less on, and then we'll probably need more hotels. Because people still go on holiday, and the alternative to be on a cruise ship is to take a holiday with hotels, and maybe going around by bicycle or train. So some parts of sufficiency will support growth, others will degrowth. It will increase utility of consumption without increasing GDP. So if you have, for instance, a product that lives longer, you'll be happily using that product for many, many years, and you don't have to buy a new thing. So you have a good use of what you have, but it doesn't contribute to GDP. And that's another thing. GDP is not the perfect measure of wealth or progress, because you're not more happy because you spend more money on your, say, computer that breaks down every 3 or 4 years instead of having it for, say, 10 years or more. So the policy recommendations that we set up was that we should set sufficiency as a national climate policy direction. To do that, we need to map in each country the sufficiency policies, their climate effects, economic effects, equity effects. And then we have to make sufficiency plan as part of the climate plan, so when countries are making, municipalities are making their climate plans, to those include sufficiency. And one of that should be to provide support for low consumption, high impact consumption, but also involve citizens in decision, because another issue besides economic critique is to get citizen support, which is quite important for all kinds of climate policies, but also education policies, citizen assemblies, consultations, informed consent of local people who will be affected when physically change cities so it becomes more useful for citizens and us. It has to be and then once we have that, we should integrate sufficient policies and set the policies. So that's what basically what we should do. They call the whole conversation. We think that it's actually, many of these things are actually global, and not just because of world countries. Because many of the things we propose also we reduce companies. Hello? Is that better? More. Yeah. Longer lifetime repairability, more single engagement make product more accessible for all. And also some European sectors and areas. And some development control and considering initiatives will also be as interest useful life or lifestyle. So that's what I like to do. So I don't have a presentation. I hope I'm loud and clear because I think the presentation would have helped. Anyway, thank you, Gunnar. Thank you very much. It's interesting that already in the last 3 days, I've heard sustainable consumption, sustainable production, and now we are talking about sufficiency. These are usually the white elephants in these corridors. We don't like talking about these things. We don't like to talk about how we are going to change our consumption patterns, especially in this day and age. And it's very interesting that this year we are hearing more and more. So it's an honor, thank you for inviting me today. We often hear of the 2 pillars of transition to climate neutrality, efficiency and renewables. But as experience shows, these alone are not enough, especially because they tend to have rebound effects. We save energy, but we consume more. And as renewable energy expands, demand continues to outpace supply. Yeah, continue to. So today we must try and lift this 3rd pillar, sufficiency, and that is living well within planetary boundaries. And sufficiency does not have to be about sacrifice. It's about redefining prosperity, shifting from more is better to enough is plenty. And I come from India. I'm going to speak about life, but for millions of Indians, we've always been encouraged to adopt simple, sufficient lifestyle. Those of you who have ever visited our parts of the world
you would know, one of the reasons why our carbon footprint is so low is not because of our 1%, but it is because of our 95% who are, well, for various reasons, consume very less. So, in my culture, I have grown up with the with this I would say it is deeply rooted in our cultural and philosophical ethos. One is called aparigraha. It's a very important word. It means non-possession. It comes from the Jain and Gandhian traditions. And the concept of santosha, which is contentment in everyday life. Gandhi had warned us a century ago that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. Yeah? So this principle is now being revived as part of our national mission called Lifestyle for Environment, which was launched by our Prime Minister and endorsed by the United Nations in 2022. And it really is calling you to go back to the habit of mindful consumption as an individual, and that would then lead to collective behavioral change. Very quickly, I will run through some of the what we call pro-planet behaviors that the Life Mission promotes, starting with housing, energy efficient buildings, and community scale renewable systems. Yeah, with an emphasis on right sizing. Right sizing is a new phrase that we will are listening. These are homes designed for sufficiency, not excess. In rural housing programs, there is a growing attention to low impact materials, local design, and thermal comfort, showing that sufficiency can mean dignity, not deprivation. For transport, the city I come from, Kochi, the city I was born in, Pune, they are pioneering shared mobility, electric buses, and non-motorized transport strategies. The Life campaigns, Cycle for Planet, and Car-Free Thursdays are shifting mobility culture, reminding us that sufficiency in transport is about accessibility, not ownership. In products, we have a whole culture of repair, reuse, and recycle. I remember even today, till that thing dies, yeah, you keep fixing it, you keep repairing it, you keep, trying to use it, and once it's dead, you find some alternative use for it, but it will still be there. And that culture is now had eroded in last 15, 20 years, 2 decades, I would say, as we started copying the West, and I don't mean it as an offense at all, but you know what I mean. But that is being revived now, and it's basically about extending the lifespan of any product. Yeah. There is one European initiative that I'd like to talk about, is the C-type cables. I think it's such a fantastic example of just removing, these days you get phones without cables because you already have that cable. You can always borrow that cable. If you remember, till just a year ago, till you made this mandatory, we had to run around. I had a separate cable for my old Kindle. I had a separate cable for my Android phone. I had a separate cable for my iPad. But now one cable does it all. And I think that's a great example of what expanding the life of a product could possibly be. Food waste is another issue. I don't think we talk about it enough. But food sufficiency policies connect climate and culture. In India, we have now the mistakes that we made as part of the Green Revolution, yeah, of moving away from millets. Our traditional food, until the 1960s, were millets. But then we brought in rice, and then we brought in wheat, and then we, of course, it was done for the right reasons. We had to cope with food insufficiency. But now millet is back. It is an adaptation strategy because millets are very easy to grow in extreme weather conditions, and they grow easily, and they are actually addressing food security. India has a huge tourism sector, and the tourism sector was again copying the West, giving you those 5-star, 7-star facilities. I live in Kerala, which is one of the most beautiful states in the country. I live up in the mountains. And increasingly, we are seeing that all our guests and all our visitors are preferring ecotourism destinations. The consciousness amongst our guests, okay, how, I don't want to talk about the consumption patterns back home, but how are they looking at what is being offered at destinations has also changed. Before this mic dies, I just want to say, let's make sufficiency popular and integrate it into our climate policies. And for that, we need to frame it positively. Because sufficiency is not about less, it's about better. And policies must celebrate well-being, not austerity. Nobody is asking you to deprive yourself, but you have to ensure your personal well-being and the planetary well-being. Second, and this is something at Climate Action Network South Asia we are campaigning. Pleased to see that 5 of these countries have signed up with WTO, is to embed sufficiency in national climate strategies, and that is being done through our LIFE program. And third is engage people and communities, especially young people. Yeah, make it fashionable, make it stylish. And I'm again very proud to say that, what is it, the latest generation called? Alpha? Yeah. The alphas are actually embracing this culture. The alphas are very cool about taking their parents' clothes and wearing them, carrying the mother's purse, and they're taking pride. They are swapping more than ever. So I have a lot of hope that this generation will make up for all the mistakes that my generation made. I always, when I speak to young people, I speak a lot to schools, I always open with an apology for forgetting what my mom had taught me, what my father had taught me, and just embracing blindly the Western culture. And I please do not take offense, yeah, at all. I mean it in a very good way, and we can see those changes coming. We see those changes coming in our children. So, sufficiency, equity, and justice, these are all tied up. Yeah. So, for the affluent, that would mean reducing waste and overuse. Nobody's asking you to change your lifestyle. And for the poor, it means ensuring access to essentials like energy, water, housing, and mobility. Anyway, I just want to keep it short. I have taken a lot of points. Uh, the path to climate neutrality is not technological. It is a moral, cultural, and behavioral change that we should be looking at. Efficiency and renewables may build the bridge to net zero, but only sufficiency will ensure that it stands the test of justice and time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll stop here and take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. And now we have an opportunity to have a little dialogue. So if anybody, we have a couple of minutes, and hello, yeah, yeah. And if anybody has a question, so please do that. Okay, you were the first.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. Super important topic. I come from Finland. I'm a former senior ministerial advisor and a professor nowadays, working very much with sufficiency topics, because our country is the one in EU who consumes most per capita, and EU is the one who consumes most in the world. So we are the ones who really should do something. But I would be interested in your views that how can we get the message of sufficiency up? I mean, you had several points, but I'm sure that you've been doing some discussions with politicians, as have I. But in your view, what would be those channels that would work? Because the politicians are also very much being approached and lobbied by industries who are, threatening that there will be job losses and that's bad for the GDP and so forth. Of course, we can debate about whether GDP makes any sense or not, but that's how the world is run nowadays. So in your view, what would be the route to politicians' hearts?
Well, does this one work? Not really. So I try this one. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. If it had been easy, we had done it a long time ago, I have to say. Because what we've been saying is basically that we need to have the different policies evaluated on their own, on their own right, and also have to go up against this message that everything that grows is good. So, I mean, I was just mentioning this about the cruise ships, to take something which is relatively new development. I mean, they are not a new invention, but relatively new invention that so many people in Northern Europe are making the holidays on a cruise ship instead of going on a camping wagon or tent or something. And there's very little discussion about what is the problem about it, and there's no taxation. They have tax-free oil. They have, which they use for all their things, which is why they're so polluting because of their facilities. So, I mean, a simple thing like taxing cruise ships similar to what you tax, for instance, oil for a car, would make a lot of difference. And I think, like we've had a long debate about taxing airplanes, but then, of course, the problem is that with taxing, say, just airplanes, if there's not developed alternatives, it will not make so much difference like if you have good alternatives. But I mean, since so many people here, like Shai mentioned, and in other experts saying, we need to address this about the lifestyle. We think if there is a good case for addressing it on a more overall level, and then evaluate the proposals depending on what they do for both for economy, for development, for everything, and see which of them actually can be introduced in each country. But it requires the first big step is to get countries to accept that this is also a line of policies and it's not something which is for or against growth.
Okay, I would like
maybe
to.
Shai to have it.
But I would like to give also the opportunity to the other question.
Want to address this question? Thank you, Lead Watson. When we look at consumption and everything, one of the key is not just climate. We have a water crisis around the world that needs to be able to support the growth, the nature. So how do we deal with that? I mean, there are policies in place where water is exchanged between countries, etc. We're going to end up with a major policy issue unless we start looking at how water is shared and how we can, sustain water to support the economies around the world.
Can I go? Yeah. No, thank you for asking that question. And I'm so sorry I didn't mention water. I didn't mention that we are running out of everything. We are running out of everything. And thank you, sir, for asking that question. But our politicians are frightened. Even my politicians, my parliamentarians, my government representatives are frightened of talking of these issues because they think that their constituencies will revolt. Yeah. And that is why I mentioned Generation Alpha. it has to come from people. Policies are made for people, and when your politician, when your policy makers feel that I'm going to make this policy and that is going to be seen as depriving my people of something, he's going to lose his votes. He's not going to be ever elected back. I keep saying that back home in my country, building big infrastructure is the way that are currently, everybody's winning votes. They could spend the same thing on ensuring supply of clean water, supply of quality education, things that are still missing, yeah. But we, no, 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 we will build big, big, big. We, in Bombay, where I used to live before, every mayor wants to make their country Singapore. Yeah, everyone wants to create a Hong Kong in their backyard. And that's the picture that we've sold ourselves, that this is development. GDP, nobody pays attention to anymore because if there is one lie, if there is one lie that is universal, that is GDP. And we have all bought into that lie. Our policymakers lie to themselves when they talk about GDP. Those numbers are not real. You know that, and I know that. Yeah. So I truly believe that it has to come from people. It has to be, we need models. We need, and there are, I'm sure, models. I was watching, some of you might have seen this mad English show called Jeremy Clarkson's Farm Show, where he's showing this agriculture in Netflix show where he's, and I look at all these strict laws they have in England, all these, he can't move one pillar from one place to another because, it will affect some conservation value or something somewhere. And it just turns off people. When I speak of water, we speak of wastage. Yeah. I live in a state which is up in the mountains and which practically supplies water to 3 other states because we collect it. And when we go down, yeah, we see these guys have taken their water for granted. This taking for granted culture has to be changed. And again, it's not going to be policymakers. It cannot be mandated. It cannot become a rule because the day you make it into a rule and not remind people that it's actually a necessity, we've lost the battle. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, just to another perspective of this, I mean, you mentioned water, you could have mentioned resources of all different kinds of minerals. And the thing is, with this growth that we have, we consume more and more of all these things. But if we if we keep consumption to a level where we don't speed more and more, but have enough, then we also will need less of all the other resources, not just the energy. So that's whether it's smaller houses for those who like a little smaller houses, and I mentioned that again because in Denmark there's a typical, where I come from, to build big houses so people don't have much choice. If they want to buy a house, it's big. But there should be these options and also support for having the smaller things, just in this case, or smaller cars. For some reason, it's a big fashion to have big cars, and then which not really needed and which just a hassle, particularly if you go into a city. So I think that that sufficiency it doesn't solve the problem, but it helps on the problem. The same thing with the energy. You still need efficiency and renewable energy.
Hi everyone, my name is Elise and I come from Denmark. I'm a climate justice activist, but I'm also I work in this organization called Wellbeing Economy Alliance Denmark. And I'm so glad to see this event because I'm very much in a bubble at home. I think a lot about like how we should change the structures in the economy, how we should live like different lifestyles than we do today, sustainable lifestyles as you talk about, and like sufficiency, all of these things. And I'm actually quite shocked coming here to COP that it's not a subject at all. And like in the text that they write, in the cover decisions and so from the previous years, it's only like, yeah, as you said, like the development means like one thing, the exact same thing that we have done that we shouldn't have done. And I just want to know, like, where do you see like small holes or like windows of opportunity that we can get this agenda more into the negotiations? Is there someone who tried to speak for this? I don't know, Bhutan or something. And how can we support that and get some more text in the decisions about this? Because right now I can't find it at all. Gunnar showed me 2 years ago there was something about sustainable lifestyles in a small sentence, but yeah, I wanted to know like where is this agenda in the COP negotiations? If you can elaborate on that, and how can we support more of it?
Well, I have to say that what I think I showed you 2 years ago did not end up in the text at all. That was the conclusion from COP28 in Dubai, the GST decision, where we had for a long time managed to get in something about sustainable lifestyles, but then at the end the countries removed it, but the only reference which they left, which is still there, is about sustainable consumption and production patterns. And sustainable consumption patterns is somehow what we speak about here. So but it has just one little line in that GST decision. So I think that's the only thing which is left if you're speaking about it. And then the question is if anybody, because once we have these decisions, the next step is what do you do about the decisions? And at the moment, the big discussion is what do we do about that they decided to triple renewable energy and what other things are in the decisions from COP28. And that's what so somebody had to pick it up. But we can ask if Shai thinks India would be the right country to do it. That's a little bit bigger than Bhutan. And also we should see if we could get it from some other country. It could be European countries should be obvious candidates, but France could be a good country to take it up, for instance.
I have a contrarian and a little view about this. You don't want to add any more to their agenda. Let them sort out the agenda that they have been fighting for last 30 years. Yeah, I think these are national policies. I think we have to decentralize our approach. These guys, I have been attending COPs since 2004. I was almost didn't come for this COP, but they said, oh, it's good. We are going to get a breakthrough on adaptation. And adaptation is your whole, where you can push this agenda through. Yeah, because in the future, this big renewable energy mitigation and, big solar power plants and wind turbines and efficiency, that's all happening. It will happen. You don't want to add anything to their agenda. We want to finish this process. We don't want to open up a new thing. And I think one of the problems with the negotiation is that all of us with our great, bright, new ideas keep adding things to these negotiations. And that just keeps delaying stuff. Unless we get a few breakthroughs, yeah? Renewable energy uptake, against coal-fired uptake, has nothing to do with these negotiations. We would like to believe that. We would like to believe that they set the base and the world knew that one time we will all agree and this thing and we are ahead of the game. Doesn't mean a thing. I don't mean to be critical of my own country, but we set a very ambitious target. We are 70% at our target before 2030 when it comes to renewable energy. But our coal targets are getting higher and higher. Doesn't mean a thing. If you're going to set up renewable energy and you're going to also continue to mine for coal because people want 24/7 electricity. Yeah, people want, which is fine. But that same set of 24/7 electricity is for what? So I would say don't bring it to negotiation. Let's work with our communities. Let's work with our people. Let's work on a district level. Let's start that culture first. And it will happen. It has happened. There are many stories. I also like to share I don't like quoting Gandhi over and over again because that man has said anything and everything about everything. Yeah. So he did warn you that imagine if 1 billion people from India, at that time they were not 1 billion, start behaving like the Western civilization. And we have. The part of the problem is our consumption patterns are going to affect rest of the world more than your patterns did. I'm not taking away from your historical responsibility. I'm not taking away from that. But imagine if we were to act and behave and consume like the Western. I need a better way of saying this without offending you. But imagine if we were to behave like there are no Americans in the room, and anyway, they are a good shot. Imagine if all of us were Americans.
California,
Oh,
not America.
California is not USA. Anyway, so I always say that it is not about individuals, it's about community. And I think California is a great example of that. Has been, and I'm married to a Californian, so so I will say there are so many, and around the world. So you said you're from Sweden, Denmark. There are so many examples, whether it is mobility, whether it is sharing of stuff, carpooling. These things are happening. We just need better technology transfer of these ideas. I think it's knowledge transfer, not technology transfer, that we should be looking at.
That was very well put. Thank you, sir. But I think that we still need a little bit of policies, but maybe we need to, what we truly need is an alternative narrative that what is good life
Absolutely,
about.
yeah.
And I think that that's something that the generation Alpha, or what is it nowadays? My children are that generation. But I think that that has to go through all generations, so that there would be an alternative view that what is cool, what's beautiful, what's fair, and that the something that we aspire for isn't like getting bigger cars, bigger apartments, getting more holiday cabins, and so forth. So I think that when they, at least I'm hoping this, that when there would be this sort of like change of values and change of aspirations, then that would be something that would diffuse towards policies, because these people who are going towards these new narratives are also voters. And as a professor of architecture, I nowadays live in a tiny home. I designed it for myself, mostly from reused materials. I'm trying to show this as an example among my colleagues at the university to the students that, hey, you can also have a different approach to design. But still, I think that this is something that we should do at scale. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised that this magnificent session is here at the very far corner of the conference location. No offense to the organization, but anyway, this should be at the plenaries.
Yeah, true. Just to also talk about the Switch Asia program of Europe. There is a big sustainable consumption and production program that Switch Asia runs, and they have brought that into these talks. They are, yesterday we had a press conference where they spoke of circular economy, and so that it is happening. It's not as if it's not happening, not on the scale, but let's see where it goes. So, thank you. And I would love to hear your example and share your examples that it is possible even in that part of the world. Make it fashionable, make it trendy, make it poppy, and it'll be picked up. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think we are ending with that. I'm a little bit more optimistic that negotiations lead to something. I think that what we have been doing here has given better financing for renewable energy and for more focus on efficiency and more money spent from various sources on promoting efficiency in different parts of the world. So I think it does make a difference, not as much as we would like, of course. And maybe there's also other UN processes. There's a process of the Sustainable Development Goals where there's a special goals on sustainable consumption and production patterns, which actually should be another way of working for it on international level. And then I think I wish good luck with the Mission Life, and maybe we should all join that. And if you're interested to join our Enforce network, we have some issues on our Sustainable Energy News. It will hand out after the session. So, and thank you very much for coming. I'm glad to see that we managed more or less to fill out the room on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.